welcome back to Guiding Stars. We're your hosts, the Star Sisters. I'm Stephanie, also known as the Star Keeper, and this is Stephanie, also known as Starlin.
Hello.
Today we're kind of want to do more of a free flow, allowing ourselves to kind of jump on any topic that kind of flows through us. But me and Star have been really focusing on sound and what sound is, like the magnificence of this vibrational frequency that has birthed everything into existence, from our own vibrational bodies to Earth's resonance frequency, to the fact that everything is a wave pattern, which is sound. There really is nothing in existence that doesn't have some type of vibrational frequency that is sound based. And the more we dive into this, the more excited we get about sound healing and tuning forks and the bowls and the sound of our voice. And so we just kind of want to dive into this topic and really ground everyone into the reality of this is a harmonic sound universe. And for example, even the word universe, universe, one song basically. And that is really what ties everything together. So yeah, we're going to kind of jump into this, and if we end up flowing off topic, we're going to let it happen. But yeah, here we are with the topic of sound.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. So sound is so amazing. And I recently started this 7-week course with this gentleman, John Stewart Reed, and it's a 7-week course on somatics. So everything that he's been talking about is sound-based, and it is just so fascinating. I am more excited about it today than I was a couple months ago. And boy, was I excited to join it back then, because the reason I was excited about it back then when I signed up is because, he was saying, I'm going to explain to you how sound heals. And that's my whole forte. I just want to heal people.
Yeah.
And, with learning with tuning forks, and I have everything, and I'm ready to go to learn so I can apply this on myself and the people that I love, and eventually also to clients in the future. But yeah, it's so amazing because I'm learning so much about how important that specific words are. I mean, we've talked about the importance of words. Our thoughts and our emotions create the reality around us that we manifest. But the sound in every single word is just like so magnificent. I'm blown away. I really am.
Yeah, it deeply connects to all things, and we don't even think about how sound affects us in our daily life, right? Like the words we use. Like, I know you just mentioned that we did touch on this topic in, I believe it was spiritual hygiene when we did that video, but really thinking about like the sounds we hear every day, the words we use to ourselves, and then also very specific healing frequencies, the ones that we know about. So like you mentioned, using tuning forks for very specific healings, but the power lies within our own voices too. And what's so funny, just like thinking of this, how many people, I'm there and still trying to get over that, hate the sound of their own voice. We hate hearing ourselves. Think about that.
That's
right?
So weird, right?
It's our resonant frequency. It's definitely DNA codes coming out that our voices can activate each other, activate things in our realm. Matter of fact, one of the things that I hardly took notes this time, but I wrote down specifically abracadabra, the magic word, right? And what that really means is I will create as I speak. And so we've been taught almost, I don't know if we've been taught, I feel like it's been handed down, or that it's almost instinctual, that we've learned to hate our own voices. And that is literally the essence and the very beginning of our creation. Not only are our thoughts, which aren't really ours, but frequencies and sounds that we're picking up on in this unheard universe, but that this is coming from within us, and how unconsciously we speak. And I almost wonder if that is kind of why we hate it, right? Like that we weren't taught that our voices hold so much power, that the words that we say can create or destroy.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I've actually met a lot of people that don't like the sound of their own voice, aside from myself. Yeah, I've never thought of that.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that we are it kind of goes with the fact that like so many of us come up self-hating.
Hmm.
The fact that a lot of this reality, this false reality, the one overlaying our true reality, um, is derived on a fear-based, hate-based kind of frequency where we prefer to degrade things and drop in frequency. And so to hate our sound of our own voice is almost like a default setting, and nobody is not, I don't want to say nobody, because there's people today who are raising such beautiful future kids and teaching them the power, but for most of us, we're told to be quiet, right? Have you heard this like saying in the past where children are meant to be seen, not heard? And I wonder if that's almost the beginning of it, because when we come out of the womb, we're crying, we're screaming, sound is the first thing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
kids are always speaking. And even if it's nonsense, even if you don't want to hear it, your kid just going on and on and on, they're getting used to the sound of their voice, getting used to their power. And if we, rather than telling them to be quiet, sit still, be quiet, sit still, what if we told them the power of their words?
Yeah, yeah. That is so cool. Yeah. Well, now I really want to instill this more into my toddler.
Yeah.
Because I have two teenagers. So when they were younger, I used to always be like, quiet, because there's two of them, it's
It's
like
hard not to.
nonstop.
It's
Just
hard
nonstop.
not.
But with this guy, I listen to him a lot. And I think I express more with him than I do with the other ones. But yeah, sound is just the thing that a lot of people don't know is that when we're speaking, it's not just the sound that's coming out that's also healing and beneficial, but people don't realize it is an actual like substance that is coming out. Like our breath, we can feel the breath, we
Yeah.
can't see it. But if we can imagine the sound coming out at the person in front of us as if it was like our breath, okay, because in a sense it kind of is, but the sound has its own, it is itself. It's like, the
Yeah,
atoms and
it's this
molecules.
vibrational breath, basically, is what
Yeah,
like
like
you're trying to say.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like a wavelength, and it's legitimately hitting the person in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Who
and it
thinks
could
about
be
that, right?
good. Like, we could really like be so healing with our words with people who are in front of us who are like mad and angry or sad or depressed. Um, you know, I feel like it's really damaging when people say like, "Oh, I hate you," or "Shut up,"
Yeah.
or "Be quiet," or "You don't know this," or "You're stupid." It's
Yeah.
like you're not just damaging their self-esteem and making it harder on whatever they're going through, but you're legitimately like penetrating those words through their skin, like
Yeah, it's
into
like an
their bodies.
assault. Yeah,
It
it's
is.
kind of it's a verbal assault in a sense, and it can be
Mhm.
considered assault because it is touching your body. Like you mentioned, it's going through your auric field. Your cells are listening. And we also touch on this topic with water consciousness, because our body's waters are responding to, as we mentioned, Dr. Emoto showing us and tangible evidence of how water is actually listening and encoding
Yes.
to the words we speak, and how hate, love, and all this stuff affects us. And we are literal walking bags of water. And so not only is the frequency that we're emitting, but what we're receiving. And I think about how like cities, right? Very densely populated areas, which I feel we're not inherently meant to be living like that. We need some space, we need nature, but that's a whole nother thing.
Mhm.
But if you go into a city and you listen, it's noise. It's not even sound. I believe sound and noise are two different things, even though it's
Yeah.
still by definition the vibration
Mhm.
frequency that something is resonating at. To me, sound is harmonic.
Yeah, like
It's
healing.
present.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And noise doesn't, like if a car honking
Like
and
destruction. It's like
traffic,
damaging.
even yeah, like you said, construction, like all these different noises that like you almost want to hold your ear. Sirens. How many sirens do you hear in cities?
Yeah.
And we don't think about how that's affecting our bodies at all times, and what that's
No.
doing to our mental state, our emotional state. Can you really relax your nervous system when you're receiving these codes? Because everything's a code, right? Like your body's picking up information. This is a information densely packed environment, from sound to light to everything. And
Mhm.
when we're in these cities and you're in these chaotic environments, it's hard to focus. It's hard to tune into yourself. It's hard to care about somebody else. It's just such an overwhelming environment, not just in the population, but in the noise structure. It really feels like it blows out your own frequency, that it's hard to tune into yourself, right?
So then, yeah, imagine with that. Okay, so like sound would be healing, noise would be like
Yeah,
damaging to us. And
yeah.
then so aside from like just like the constant sounds of being in like a city
Hmm.
and all that damaging sounds, because there's nothing harmonic about that, you know, we're being hit and bombarded with that. And then the people that are walking around that are like, I hate my job or I hate
Yeah,
this, like, oh
yeah.
my God, a couple weeks ago, my partner and I and our son, we were out just outside sitting at Wetzel Pretzel with our kid, which we haven't done in a long time, really, to be honest. And every single person that was walking by, it was like gossip or talking bad about somebody or like complaining to their partner or like yelling at their kid. And now that like with the sound course that I've been taking, that we've actually been taking, I'm like thinking, oh my gosh, like how much stuff am I getting hit with? How damaging is that even just walking around?
Hmm.
So
And
I feel like,
it's not that we have to hide from it either, because
no,
I really believe awareness is the key to everything, right? So like,
yeah,
if you live in a city, and I don't think it's the most optimal place to be, especially with the upcoming agendas and certain things that are going on with these densely populated areas. But it's not a death sentence necessarily, but you do have to really up your spiritual hygiene game if you are in
hmm,
a chaotic environment, besides taking on, like you mentioned, the vibrational frequencies that people are just spitting out into the universe. The universe is listening. The universe is responding to all of us,
yeah,
into our individual realities, but then as a collective reality. And that's also why, like, for example, um, big corporations spend so much money on like advertising, is because
yeah,
this is a mental reality. And so the thing that we speak, the narratives that we adapt to and continue to regurgitate, really do take root in our environments. And so, if you have this is just like a thought here, not that this has been done before, but I'm assuming that if you had an area that was maybe negatively afflicted by violence, violent acts, violence. Like, I mean, think about what a gunshot could do out in the open with the intent. Not
mhm,
against guns or anything like that, but I do believe the intention, when being used, leaves an energetic stain. And
mhm,
if we were all consciously aware of this, right? Imagine getting like a group of people to like hum, vibrate, sing the frequency out of existence. I really do believe that that would up the frequency in that area. Matter of fact, now that I'm speaking about this, I do believe there was some type of documented experience where I believe it was like monks.
yeah,
I don't want to
yeah.
get this wrong, but
No,
have you
you're
heard of it?
right.
Yeah, right. Where they
Yeah,
they went
there's
to a location and did a mass prayer or something, and it actually changed like the crime rate in that area for a while. If you know more,
yes.
please elaborate.
Well, I don't know the specifics, but I have heard and seen throughout the years that it actually is a very common thing. A lot of these monks commonly do this. There's villages that get together, there's people that get together and they sit there with the same intentions. So they say the same mantras or they do the humming,
Yeah,
and things change within the city around them. And it's amazing.
yeah,
So like, okay, I was thinking like back to the moment when I was at Retzel Pretzel with my family.
yeah.
I'm thinking like, so I was thinking when we were talking, like, if I were to maybe, if I would have been aware of the fact that all those negative words were kind of bombarding around me, and maybe in a future situation, I'll just bring up something positive. Like, oh,
Mhm.
hey, babe, did you know that blah, 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 or somebody's birthday or this or that, or somebody got a promotion? Like, maybe to help like dispense all of the negativity that's kind of around
Yeah,
me.
even just to protect yourself in the meantime,
Yeah.
not taking on the frequencies that are around you. Um,
Yeah.
because it could be hard to try to directly influence everything. We would need a
Yeah.
larger group of people, but that's when it comes down to the self and
Yeah.
being able to say, okay, I know I'm in a shitty environment. I can hear that this is toxic conversations going around. How can I at least protect my frequency or protect my family by communicating to them
Mhm.
love and making sure I'm anchoring that frequency in? So yeah, like, even if we don't have the world's largest impact, you're always impacting your own reality. And
Yeah.
the it's so important that we realize that we emit our own frequency. And if you're not emitting your own frequency, if you're not programming your own codes, if you're not taking control of what's going on within yourself, within your immediate environment, then you're being programmed and affected by everything else. And so
Yeah, then something
choice.
else is going to take over and take
Yeah.
control of it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you could feel that, you know, and so just remembering that we do have, even if we don't have the effect to heal everything, if we can just be beacons in that moment in time and maybe plant a good thought there, maybe someone else will pick up on it too. So we really don't know how far and wide our harmonics and frequency can really extend, but I do believe that we can affect this reality so much more than we think, and it's just about that conscious awareness. Like, I personally think that we are in constant communication with our environment, and either we're realizing it or we're walking through unconsciously. Regardless, it's happening.
Yep, it is. Well, and so speaking of sound and like the healing benefits of it, because, you know, there's so much pollution around us on multiple different aspects. But I saw something on Instagram yesterday, and I posted it today, and it was this little device that you can actually put on a plant, and then it'll emit the sound frequency. So the plant actually emits it from this little speaker. You can hear it singing. Could you imagine if we had places that like we would go to, excuse me, we'd go to like restaurants or something, and we would just have like all these plants around us kind of like singing and like,
like a harmonic, everybody, you can hear them,
harmonic cafe or something. Like, how cool would that be? I
think that it's funny, we're talking about sound and we're both like sitting here clearing our throat.
I know.
just off topic for a moment with that. A lot of times throat clearing means that you're making way for like truth, that like you're speaking this truth and you want to make sure it's coming out clearly. So don't mind us.
And releasing too. Yeah, we're just releasing and purging and
moving that energy. But like I have this now. I'm not going to advocate, but I'm also not going to go against it. But this is my personal experience. So I have indulged and experiment with psychedelic mushrooms, and I've done it for a few years now, and I honor them as sacred that they are. I mean, they're from the earth. They come this way, you know, and I believe that this plant medicine is really true. And what's really interesting is once I'm going through the come up, right, and you're starting to have the effects set in and your mind's making these different frequencies, I always hear a resonant humming within my head. And it, to me, I'm starting to hear the higher pitch frequencies. And I can go on and on and on about the experiences that I've had with mushrooms and how I believe that my own experiences on them have been showing me this great awakening that we're going through and how it's going to feel and what we're going to embody. But it also gives me the feeling of communicating with nature and how we can actually hear these frequencies, the like ones that you're saying, where we have a tool that we're able to translate this frequency to now, and we can hear the different frequencies from a palm tree versus a mushroom, and a blade of grass versus a dandelion, and we can hear them. And I believe that our truest versions of ourselves, what I call the garden codes, our origin codes, that we actually can always hear this, and that we can choose to tune in, and we've just forgotten, and we're just out of harmonic balance with nature's resonant frequency.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Out
And
of harmonic balance.
Natural.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I really think that as we begin to awaken, waking up to sound, waking up to communicating with nature, waking up to our own sound within us, and starting to really love it, like talking on these videos, like when I'm editing, it's like I can't stand hearing myself, but I'm like, this is my frequency. I have to get used to it. This is my signature sound. And
it's funny because like, I love your voice. I love your voice. I think it's so beautiful.
I love yours.
You know, I mean, so what the heck is wrong with us?
I know. I wonder if it's because it's so close to our ears that we hear an internal one all the time. And then when we hear it played back, it's not quite the same.
Yeah,
so we're, like,
you know what? That's
off.
Probably it.
That's what I'm thinking, but I'm not 100% sure if that's like the factual
That's so funny. Yeah, okay. So with I'm just like so sound is literally like such a healing tool, and I'm so excited about it. I'm taking actually two courses right now, the one with you, and then I'm taking this other one, and I legitimately feel like we are on to some like groundbreaking sound healing explosion that's going to come in the near future
Oh yeah.
throughout all of the medical fields,
Oh
because
yeah.
they're discovering that ultrasounds are actually healing because they have like these very low hertz tones, which they've been doing these studies to find out that the lower tones are actually healing people significantly. So it's amazing. And I'm excited to see it really hit like the Western medicine world.
Yeah.
Maybe we
Yeah.
can,
Because Western medicine,
it's
I
phenomenal.
know it has like a place in, it has a purpose,
Yeah, like
but
surgeries and certain like prescriptions and
even that I
stuff.
find slightly barbaric. The idea of like having to cut somebody open to extract something.
Or
But
to like save their life, like for
yeah,
an
but
accident.
I
Like,
can understand,
yeah.
its use right now. But really, like you've mentioned, we can heal with encoding sound. And I believe in the past, like our real ancient past, that might not be as ancient as we think, but we've already done this. We've worked
Yeah.
with sound. It's our original codes. We've worked with water. We've worked with sound. These two work well together. They are of the same creation. And
Yeah.
like you've mentioned, we can we can figure out that these sounds have an effect on us. And so I would love to see a study done on city environment, long exposure of just the sound of it and how chaotic it tends to make people feel. And we all know that when we go out into nature and we listen to the birds who are in harmonic resonance with
Mhm.
nature, it's
Yeah.
naturally has an effect on us. Like blowing outside and listening to a river, we put these sounds on for meditation. Earth's frequency is something that brings us back home to ourselves. It brings us back home to the truth. But this is such a small frequency that we can actually hear.
Mhm.
For example, the dog whistle, that's a sound. We can't hear it. It's real
Right.
high pitch. And that's just another one example. Sound and light are actually the same thing because it's both a wavelength, and wave equals vibration. And so we have a very small visible light spectrum. So we have a very
Mhm.
small audible spectrum, let's say.
Yep.
And so there's so many, like you said, ultrasonic, we can't really hear it, but our bodies are reacting to the vibration. And so how many other vibrations are we not realizing we can harness? And
Well, and with the birds, we're
yeah.
only hearing half the song.
Oh
We're
yeah.
not hearing the whole song
Oh yeah.
because they go to different tones that we can't even pick up on.
Did you ever hear the video of, I think it's crickets? I think it's the video must be slowed down, right? Because they're at such a high pitch because they're so little. And if you
Mhm.
slow it down to as if they were on our frequency, it sounds like an entire angelic chorus.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I should link a video to that. Now, I don't know how factual that is, but I believe someone took
Yeah.
an audio recording and changed just the frequency pitch, and you can hear so much more. So yeah, like we don't actually hear the whole environment, and that's why I believe
Mhm.
that when I'm on, a slightly elevated state with mushrooms, that I start to hear this frequency and I can't ignore it. It's not that it's distracting, like I can still hear other things, but it's present in a
Mhm.
way that wasn't before. And with mushrooms, you know that your brain's making different connections that it wouldn't normally before. Sound is associated with visuals and vice versa, all these different rewirings. And so I feel like I'm much more sensitive to the environment, and being outside while mushrooms feel a lot more comforting than like being in a closed artificial environment. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, it's really interesting to think of how much sound has yet to be discovered, what like Earth really sounds like, what nature really sounds like. And if we tune in, think about like, I know I'm just keep going on and on, but think about how like when you're outside meditating and you just quiet down and you start to listen, suddenly you almost start to hear everything. Or it's like you didn't
Mhm.
notice that rustling in the back, or you didn't notice that bird, or maybe you didn't hear the water before, and then you sit there and you quiet down and all these sounds start to fill in, and it really is a constant song. It's just,
Mhm.
that's Earth. It's a constant song.
Yeah, it is. And it actually, has been proven to lower your anxiety and stress levels, because just by listening to nature and just by listening to the birds and like the trees, um, your whole internal system becomes at the resonance of the nature that you're within in that moment. You become that nature. And so it's just so beautiful. I feel like a lot more people need to go outside, and take some walks. And even like a way that you can give back to nature is humming, because
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
voices go all the way out. Like they I don't even know how far they go, but we can make a big impact too with everybody, not just one person. But it all starts with one person. If every single one person did something, it'd make a huge impact.
Exactly.
Yeah, I speak so much better now. Like, so my partner just had a throat surgery,
Oh.
and throughout this course now, I'm like humming to him. I'm using tuning forks on him. I'm like saying sweet, loving, kind things. Now, after he had his surgery, it's kind of silly. I went up there to see him, and I'm just like looking at his throat, sending it like love, healing energies
Yeah.
and vibes. I don't
It's
know.
real. It's
It's
real.
just so exciting.
I
Yeah.
know it could feel silly sometimes because it's not validated by like the rest of the world. It's looked at like, okay, sending me love and light's not going to do anything, but like it might not be the only answer, but it's still something that's happening. It's still an intention. It's still a frequency, and that's what everything on this planet is all about. Just how important the word and speaking really is. Again, the word abracadabra. I will create as I speak, meaning we're literally speaking out intentions and creating future timelines. And if we're not creating these timelines, we're aligning with these paths. Like, for example, for my personal experience, we were just mentioning about how before we start recording, we struggle sometimes with like eating, right? Like I have a binge eating issue. Chocolate's my favorite, and I just can't seem to stop. And I've tried to stop so many times before, and I just go right back to it. But recently, and I think also because, we're doing these videos, and sometimes it reminds me of what I should be doing, not in a sense that like I feel like I'm not doing enough, but you forget, you're living your life, and it's not always a magical spiritual thing, but this has brought more awareness to me. And so I decided to pray in a sense, and I'm not religious, but I do believe in co-creating with the universe. And so I spoke directly to the universe, and was in gratitude, but then also asking to receive. And I asked for help. I asked for help with, controlling my addiction, which was chocolate and binge eating it. And since I've done that, it's been 2.5 weeks, because actually been more than that. I think it may be almost a month with this thing in particular, where I haven't been nearly as tempted. And that's simply because I spoke it into the universe. I would think it all the time and then never fully act on it. But once I spoke it to the universe and I said, I need help to get over this, and thank you for the support. Next thing you know, I'm finding it easier to walk down the grocery store aisle and not go in and get the candy that I want, and the simple things.
Oh,
And
that's so good.
yeah, I couldn't believe how much stronger I felt in willpower. And then I realized I spoke it, and I created that. I created the strength by co-creating with the universe, by sending out my harmonic sound and desire, and then choosing to act on it, because just because you speak it out doesn't mean instantly it's going to happen. But I spoke it out with an intention that I was going to try. And I just support, and I've been supported ever since. I still get cravings, but they're so much easier to fight. They're so much easier to decide to do the better option rather than just giving in. And so really co-creating with this universe, it is always listening to us. It is always waiting for our harmonic sound. And that's why, again, gratitude works, because we're thanking out loud, and then also asking. And that's why that statement of ask and you shall receive is true, because it is.
It is. You don't ask, you're not going to receive. And that's just kind of how the law of attraction works. It's literally a boomerang effect.
Yeah.
And even if you ask and it boomerangs back and then you fall into temptation, sometimes it just means you weren't ready to receive it. It doesn't mean that it wasn't there, for you. We're so magical. I mean, like there's so many beautiful things about us humans that, we are literally a part of nature.
Oh yeah.
We just need to fine tune ourselves and become in like harmonics with nature as it
Mhm.
changes and fluctuates around us, per our situations, because we are human. We're not just out there in the wilderness all the time, which would be great,
Be better,
honestly,
yeah.
but we're not.
Not
So
yet.
if we really kept the importance, of speaking well, thinking well about ourselves, eating well, drinking good water, speaking to our water, and then when we speak in general to people, about people, being mindful of what we say, because it literally has an impact,
Yeah.
you know. And I also believe in karma, even if you're intentionally or not intentionally trying to hurt somebody, I feel like the boomerang effect, it
Oh
kind of
yeah.
all comes back to us.
Oh yeah.
Like even if you're not being intentional and you're like, oh, okay, well, you just talking about something and maybe it could be negative to somebody else,
Yeah. Oh, how many curses do we unconsciously, send out not only against ourselves but others? Like you mentioned, even if you didn't mean it, then why did you say it? And that's
Yeah.
where consciousness and awareness comes into play, where we've done so many things unconsciously, so
Mhm.
much that we just feel like, oh, gossiping about this one, F this one, or this one, and what we're doing is sending that out to that person, whether we realize it or not, and whether it sticks or not, it'll
Yeah.
eventually come back to you. Like, remember when you said those bad things? You put
Yeah.
that out into the universe. Those are your codes. I heard your voice.
And
And
it's
so
like we've been manipulated into thinking and speaking this way by what we see growing up
yeah,
through
gossip
TV,
magazines. Yeah.
magazines, just people talking. It's almost like it's a big old grand plan to confuse and distract everybody and
Almost it
keep us
was,
all
right?
enslaved. It's almost just too perfect to be
Almost
real.
engineered this way.
Hmm. I
Think
don't
about
know.
that, right?
But it's like it's wonderful to see people breaking free and realizing that there's all these tools that we have within ourselves, that we actually are the co-creators, that we could take
Yes.
our own power and we can make ourselves feel better. And if not overnight by just saying positive loving words with intentions behind it, at least you're making an impact cellularly, like on the
Yeah.
DNA level. Because what I recently learned is that the words legitimately penetrate. Well, they were talking specifically about sound. When you listen to sound, certain harmonics, that sound legitimately penetrates through your skin into your cells, becomes
Yeah.
a part of your DNA. So,
Yeah.
you might not heal a broken bone overnight, but you're starting somewhere,
Yeah. And
you know.
to mention on the topic, like you said, you might not heal a broken bone overnight. So many of us look at healing as if it has to be not only instantaneous, right, but like
Mhm.
that it's a very physical thing. But our body, if and I could be wrong on these dates or facts, but in general this is correct, our body tends to replenish cellularly every 7 years, if I'm not mistaken. It's something like that. And so imagine how much you may have accumulated energetically during that time. Your body's responding to that. So not only what you're eating, what you're putting in, what you're watching, the sounds you're absorbing, because like you said on the TV, that's still word and frequency, even though it's not happening with a person speaking right in front of you. It's still happening and you're listening and you're choosing to tune in.
Yeah.
Or you're again gossiping with your friends or indulging with gossip at work and these toxic environments, and you don't know what it's doing to you because it's on such a subtle level. It's not a bone. It's not, you're not going to suddenly have an organ failure from it. But what are your cells doing? Are they living optimally? When you see people who are living much more in alignment and choose their words more carefully and choose to speak life, and this is what this new world is about, these people radiate different. Like, you look healthier, and
Mhm.
especially if you've chose this path and you've lived it for the 7 years, your body is now 7 years rejuvenated with this type of consciousness, with this type of awareness. And you can see it on someone. Like, when you look at people who are just constantly in negative, endless, stagnant loops, they look duller. They look
Mhm.
tired. Their
Yeah.
bodies are depleted energetically. They might not be sick in a way, but if you were to look at their body on a cellular level, it's not optimal. And you have to wonder, is this, what you're putting in is exactly what you're getting out? That's another type of karma. It's going through your body. It's not always this lesson that comes to you via somebody else, like a karmic relationship.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's literally within your body that you can feel this. And so when we move through stagnancy, sound is one of those things that breaks up stuck energy, which is why the tuning forks and deliberate sound healing works for chronic pain and certain things like that, but we have to use it intentionally. And so, yeah, I mean, what's that Bible quote? I wrote it down here. John 1 verse 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And again, I'm not religious, but I do take into effect so many things that reference truth and reality. And in the beginning was the Word, right? Because everything creates sound. Everything is based on a vibrational frequency.
Yes.
And so the more you align with your nature, which is beautiful, human nature is a beautiful thing. We look at a lot of damaged people and think that's human nature, and it is not. It's a sickness that's happening. So the more closely we align with nature, like you said, Star, going out and vibrating with Earth's harmonic frequency, the more we return to that, the more godly we become, because we're vibrating on. It's just a vibration. We just have to align with that. It's sound, it's the word, it's the song.
Yeah. Well, and like every single thing that we experience physically actually does happen on an energetic level first.
Oh yeah.
So even if, let's just say there's a very athletic person who eats well, sleeps well, obviously exercises and is athletic, but tends to get into the gossip and talk bad about people, just like really angry and spiteful inside. Well, that person could end up getting cancer, and that would be not because she was eating chemicals, he or she, maybe not even exposed to environmental dangers, but it's the talk that you say, it's the things that you say that it's ugly. It's ugly to speak mean, hateful things about other people. And we're all human. We've all done it. But the more we become aware, I feel like a lot of people aren't aware of the damage that it actually creates within yourselves.
Yeah.
Talk and be and feel and send intentional negative thoughts, words towards people. When we become self-aware, it is our ultimate responsibility in that moment to go, okay, well, how am I going to protect myself? How am I going to heal myself and keep myself as clean and pure as possible as I can? All it's going to take for me, if I was this athletic person, all it's going to take for me is to stop fucking shit and saying mean things and hateful things or putting people down. Like, deal. Absolutely. Because, you're not only destroying yourself, but you could also be destroying somebody else's ego or, self-confidence, or just really bullying people, really hurts them. But yeah,
Think about the saying. I just had to write it down so I didn't forget it. What's that saying? If you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. And it sounds so basic, right? It sounds like you're teaching a kid, to not gossip, right? Because it's unnecessary. But why is that so important? Why is that a thing? Because deep down, we remember, our bodies at least remember the power of sound, the power of our words, the power of our intention behind these words. And so to your point, like you were just saying, think about how if you're diving into gossip and indulging in maybe trash talking, or even about yourself, you don't, or having an argument with someone and not just debating like ideas, because that's fine. Nothing's always harm. It's not always going to be pleasantry, but to like deliberately say something that's going to hurt somebody, you don't feel good after. Even if you feel like I win because I hurt somebody, your body doesn't feel good.
Well, no, and just like Dr. Emoto's study, we're water. Ours, literally on a structural level, we change.
Yeah, and you could feel it. And so it's like the next time you catch yourself, like, again, it's the awareness is key. We do a lot of unconscious behavior, and that's why people say wake up, because to wake up out of the slumber, to wake up out of the autopilot programming that has been going on, is to, in the moment, even if you're doing it, to catch yourself and to tune in real quick and be like, does this feel good? Am I proud of this? Or does it feel better to uptalk somebody? Does it feel better to congratulate and to make someone feel good and to talk good about yourself? Like, you can actually feel this difference. And because you can feel it, it's true. It's not just an emotion. Your body physically feels it. If you are around somebody who's really negative all the time, you feel drained. But if you're around someone who's inspired and loving and passionate and hopeful, suddenly you're lit up and you're feeling good. And this isn't for no reason. This isn't just because they're that type of person. It's their vibrational frequency, which is a sound that you are tuning into.
And sound creates the DNA structural of our everything existence. So I was just thinking when you were saying that,
Yeah.
could you imagine if you and I got into an argument and we're like best friends, roommates, whatever. And instead of me, saying, getting all pissed off more, excuse my language, getting more upset with you or whatever, maybe going in my room and taking a Valium or smoking a bowl. What if instead I went to, if I had a place I can go to where I can just go and sit in like a pod where I have trees literally like singing to me so I can lift my vibrational self up out of the moment.
Yeah.
Of what I was just in. Because you know how many people get in fights and arguments and they go to food or they go to alcohol or they'll take pills or drugs, just to escape it and not have to deal with it. It would be so beautiful if we had a place like, oh, I'm so mad right now. I'm just gonna go down to the local pod shop
or more access to like nature, like more people having access to a garden or just a sacred place like you mentioned, that has a higher frequency. Because that's a really good point. Think about how
a lot of people wouldn't. So a lot of the people that aren't nature people might not want to go to nature, and they're like, some people like to switch us out of that role of taking something to get us out of whatever we don't want to feel. I feel like for a lot of these people, it would be like really good because like going to the tanning booth or something.
No, I know what you mean. Like the med beds that are fabled, might be true. And that would work. But it's really interesting that you point out how when we do feel bad, right? Like if we were to get into an argument, or you get an argument with your partner, or even if your kid upsets you or work upsets you, that a lot of people will gravitate towards alcohol, which lowers your frequency even more. And it's like, it's because you received that frequency that made you feel all effed up, that now you're trying to match that frequency. And you don't have to. You have a choice. That's the magic of being a human. You have the choice to say, okay, I'm either going to continue this destructive frequency, which is why people struggle to get out of it, or I'm going to go try to reset myself because that's not my resonant frequency. Yes, I felt it. Yes, it sucks. It's uncomfortable, but how do I pull myself out? How do I choose a better option? And like if we were to aid more people having the tuning forks or having access to some type of harmonic
place to go, because not everybody wants to do it themselves, and like even just like the tanning bed, like a lot of people don't even want, I can't go sit at the beach, I don't want to do something, I'm just gonna go sit in a pod, And
that kind of is a sense of like an instant gratification, which kind of takes away from the fact that this is something you have to work at. But you're 100% right, because how easily can we give somebody a negative tool, Let's give someone, a positive tool even if you had like a mat to lay on that like had a vibrational frequency and you lay on it and it's on your spine, which is aligned with your chakras.
They have those.
Or how come I don't know about these things? I'm gonna get one tomorrow. Just kidding. I'll
send you a link. I don't know. There's like two, but I know I have a link for one of them for sure.
Oh yeah, no way. Look at this. Finding things out all the time of what is here and manifested. But like what if that was more of a mainstream thing, is right? Like, people go to yoga classes. What if it was more trendy to go to a harmonic balancer, I'm
like
feeling out of balance. Sound baths, going to someone who's a tuning fork practitioner, vibrational sound practitioner, so important. But also taking into account that we are vibrating all the time. What are you tuning into? And if you had a fight, if you just dealt with traffic, if something feels energetically misaligned, rather than going to match that frequency by choosing, to indulge in alcohol or fighting with someone further and spewing that energy, if we just brought the awareness to the collective society, no matter how they go about it, like Okay, you feel it, doesn't feel good, don't hand it to anybody else. Clear it out of your body. Choose a new frequency. That's all that it really is.
Address it, because like we're not used to addressing our problems. I don't really ever remember a time when people have ever in society really addressed things, unless it's like in court and it's always like this kind of like fight thing. But like a lot of people, um, they they don't address their problems. You know, you have moms that are too stressed out, that are stay-at-home moms that can't, you know, keep up, and then so they're popping pills, you know,
Yeah.
so they don't
Yeah.
have to
Or
address their
drinking.
problems.
Mm-hmm.
Or partners that don't like their other partners, so they're cheating, and like, you know, it's just people need to address the problems. Like, okay, I'm uncomfortable with the situation, I don't like what's going on, I'm not happy with you right now, so this is how I feel, how do you feel, and then where can we meet in the middle? And if we can't meet in the middle, then what do we do?
Yeah.
You
It's a
know.
lot of a self-responsibility too. Like realizing that you have that choice, and waking up to this, even the smallest choices that we think don't matter usually end up being the biggest ones that matter. Like for example, what you're listening to, you know, if you're listening to depressive music and you're depressed,
Mhm.
maybe you should stop.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if we're not taught to self-regulate, so we gravitate towards food, to pills, to other things to comfort ourselves, we're not taught how to bring ourselves back into realignment. It's your choice to go do that. And so as soon as you realize that, you stop being affected by the outside world no matter what's happening, because you realize you have a choice at all times to realign, to re-regulate, to choose something different. Like we get stuck in a lot of these victimizer patterns, and this is a frequency, this is a sound, but it's really a frequency, and this is something that plays out through generations. This is something that's taught, that's reiterated. And a lot of times people just keep looking at themselves like, oh, this is happening to me, not realizing that the choices that you're making can lead you to this, and the choices that you make in the future can pull you out. And you have to break these cycles, you have to break these patterns. And like you mentioned before, it's a lot of this is karmic, because what you're putting out, if you're giving your power away, you're going to constantly be victimized. If you don't know how to take control of your own hormonal balances, your own chemistry, that's the first thing we have control over. And it happens through healthy regulating habits, awareness, number one. And then again, choosing things that are much more in alignment, things that feel better. Like I've gone through like depressive waves. You know, I have a Scorpio moon. It can be pretty intense at times, the highs and the lows. And when I would feel low, I would just keep picking things that just match that frequency. And I would avoid all the things that feel good, all the things that actually make me happy. And I was choosing that, whether I want to sit there and think that or not. I was choosing to stay there, and we choose to sulk and get stuck. And we can, I could have right then and there decided, you know what? I don't feel good. I'm upset. But what brings me joy? Sitting out in a park, because I'm someone who likes to be outside, right? So like sitting out in a park and listening to the birds, oh, that would bring me peace. Going and doing something with someone that I love, maybe that would bring me peace. Or, you know, rather than eating greasy, indulgent foods that would make my stomach and body feel crappier, maybe if I, you know, drink some water, have some fruit, maybe I'll feel better. And it's just realizing that you have the power to align with certain frequencies at any given moment in your life, in your day. And that's your choice. What frequencies, what sounds, what vibrations are you bringing out of yourself and putting into the world?
And movement too is really
Yeah.
important too. When you get stuck in those like low vibration, depressed modes that we all go through,
Mhm.
you know, and it's unfortunate that some people get stuck in them and they have no guidance to get
Yeah, they
out.
identify with it. Mhm.
And they just stay there, and they end up dying in that same miserable state of mind, because you know they fall into that victim pattern like what you were talking about, you know. And also another thing that keeps the victim pattern alive is, what are we watching, what are we
Mhm.
listening to? Gosh, I wish somebody would just literally get rid of Disney, and not just Disney, just
So
Hollywood.
many of them.
We
Yeah.
need to restructure, because if we started making movies that like motivated people, you know, that had the right sound frequencies in there to lift them up, I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, they've changed the harmonic. It used to be,
on purpose.
what is it? It was, see, this is when I should write things down, because me and numbers aren't friends, but 432 to 440, I believe
Something
it
like
was
that.
changed, or vice
Yeah.
versa. I forget which way it was, but even just setting music, they've brought it out of frequency. So, you're right, like everything we're watching. And the sad part is positive, happy stories rarely sell because we're told to indulge in conflict, that these intense ups and downs of things are what brings happiness and excitement. And that's also why a lot of people in like partnerships, when you get into a healthy relationship, if you're someone who didn't work on yourself, it's boring to you, and you can't recognize that it's healthy and stable because you're looking for the highs and the lows and the excitement and all that stuff.
Like it's normal.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, you're right. Like, what are we looking at? What is Hollywood constantly regurgitating towards us? And it's
Yeah, so it's hard for people. Like there's so many aspects of this master plan that has been
yeah.
going on for so long. Like, you know, even if we do, like, you and I try and say good, positive things. I try and think good about myself, but I still fall into these depressions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? I'm still watching TV. I'm
Yeah.
still listening to these songs. In fact, the last month or so, I can't really listen to the radio. I can't sing along to some of my favorite songs
I
because
know.
I am not going to damage and destroy my body from all the hard work I'm trying to do to lift myself up, singing even an old song, even like a sad breakup
Yeah.
one that, I could really relate to. I'm like, I'm not putting that energy back into my body.
Yeah.
I'm not there.
Yeah.
That's not happening in my life. And if it was, that's the last song in the world that I would want to listen to
Yeah.
because it keeps you there.
It
Keeps you in that
spells.
distance. Mhm.
It really
And
is
those
spells.
are words. It's the sound. It's like
Mm-hmm.
what we're like, literally, like what we see, what we think, what we hear, what we feel, all of our senses around us, because we're electromagnetic, creates the environment around us.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's like, duh, everybody knows that. But do we really think about it? People don't really actually sit there and dissect the concept of everything.
Yeah. And like when we sing, it's so much more potent than just speaking, because you're
Hmm.
really enunciating the vowels and the sounds of words. And so Hollywood has really taken over,
Hmm.
the type of music. It's all sexual, and there's nothing wrong with being sexual. There's
There's a
nothing
time
wrong
and
with it.
place.
But when it turns into this really distorted version, and you got everyone singing along, and it just regurgitates, the damage throughout, and people play these things out, and songs used to be so much more uplifting, and not that they had to be like these Jesus music, because I don't really like that either, but it sounded more in tune with nature. Like nature was the first song. And so listening to it, the drum came in, and it's like the sound of the water,
Mhm.
hitting the rapids, and these were
Yeah.
the first sounds. And so there is conscious music out there, and you have that choice. It's not on the radio. It's not going to be on the radio, but you can choose to tune into music that is meant to be more uplifting, meant to be more
Mhm.
harmonizing. And when you sing those, it feels so much better. And I also think that more and more people should get into, and something I'm possibly even interested in. Like, I don't like the sound of my voice, but I've always loved to sing. And not that your music needs to be put out for the world to hear, but even getting comfortable experimenting with your own vocal pitches and singing to yourself, and maybe
Yes.
writing your own stuff. It doesn't have to be your career, but it can be something that is a beautiful outlet of not only self-expression, but then reprogramming and
Yeah.
joy. And singing is like, for example, I mentioned, being on psychedelics. When you're going through like a trip, sometimes you're encouraged to sing, because what it does is it also regulates the breath, because you singing, and you got to keep up with that. And so it's really just a really powerful tool that we have, and that we need to realize we're all creators. We all have this
Mhm.
ability, and even if we think that we don't have a musical talent or a good voice, that's just because we're unfamiliar with ourselves. We're
Yeah.
unfamiliar with what it's like to sound fully expressed, to uninhibit our voices. What pitches can you hit if you weren't worried about what everyone thought you sounded like?
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
How often are you fluctuating your vocal cords and really opening that up? it's
Yeah.
it's interesting too, because the vocal cords, they look like They look like, the yoni, the same type of opening, and that's the portal of creation. And so the fact that they look the same is like you're creating one way, and then this is like the birth creation, and so they're deeply entwined. And that's also why I think a lot of music in modern day is sexually based to distort that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because they're ruining what the actual sexual connection really is between a man and a woman with the way that they're doing it, because they're pushing on there that you have to be this certain way to be accepted if you're a woman.
Yeah.
And then it's all about like pleasure.
Yeah.
And you know what? It is about pleasure, but
it's a perverted
so
one.
much more. Yeah. In a perverted way, it's wrong.
Yeah. And to pervert, it's really like the same, like the words in there, like invert. It's taking what is sacred and flipping it upside down. So we're all inherently sexual beings, and we have this power and we should embrace it. And it's more sensuality than sexuality. But yeah, it's turning into like this lust pornographic thing, like you watch the music videos today and they're getting worse and worse. The lyrics are getting worse and worse, and
they're so damaging.
They're degrading
all of it.
Yeah, and through just the disguise of empowerment. And like, what's empowering about half the things that they're doing? And again, I'm not a prude or anything, I have nothing against dancing and expressing and moving your body. Like, I love belly dancing. It's a beautiful, I wish I could, one day I might. But it, and it's very sexual in nature, but it keeps its mystery. It keeps its alignment. But then you look on TV and it's like just sex moves on the stage, split, bump in the ground. And it's just like, first of all, we know kids are watching, and that's what it's really for.
To target.
Let's not even pretend like that's not happening.
Yeah.
But it's also to, like you mentioned, to invert the idea of what the role of men and women are meant to be, that we're over here, being absolute, no inhibitions, show it all, bear it all. There's no mystery to the woman. There's no value then to her. And we're wondering why we're watching this dynamic. I really actually want to get into a whole separate video, maybe, if you're interested, where we can get into like the roles of the divine masculine and feminine, the original codes, because holy crap, that's so far under attack. And that's with the sound too. What are we hearing, and what are we encoding, and can we? And
it's here first. It's like here in the USA where it's really bad, because I watched like 90 Day Fiance and like, I get a glimpse of what these other countries are like, and oh my God, like, even they have places where they go and they do these chants and like, it's so beautiful. The culture is so different. And then I'm looking back at the US of like the things that we do and the music that
because we're so progressive, right? We're so progressive that we're actually destructive at this point, that we're losing all for the name of removing boundaries. We're becoming so far open that we're allowing negative infiltration. And other countries are not perfect. There's high sex trafficking all around the world. There's really bad things, but a lot of cultures still hold some type of sacred beliefs. And America is like the land of the lost culture. And I'm not 100% stuck on the idea of culture being a good thing. The word cult is literally in culture. It's a lot of times unconscious, repeated behaviors for the sake of ancestors, but some of it holds value still. Like, there's a reason why certain things are handed down as truth, like I mentioned, prayer and co-creating with the universe, and certain sound and certain rituals are beautiful. But then other things that are in culture are also encoded by some of the negative stuff, and I believe that that being handed down isn't great either. But you're right, we look at America and we're like the forefront of leading the way of degradation, just totally taking what human should be and saying, but if we take all the limits off, drop it all the way down, everybody's on the same playing field. And that's not how it should be. We shouldn't.
And these other countries are looking in thinking, oh my God, they have it so great, they have everything, it's so wonderful,
and yet we're so ungrateful.
They don't see though that like the majority of people are walking hurting, destroyed, like crumbled souls. Like, there's a lot more joy, I think, in some of these smaller villages where they, that they don't have the nice homes in the cart. There is, and it's with nature, and it's with the organics, less pollution. There's no chatter. That's It's really sad that these amazing, beautiful people who are having these wonderful experiences, not all of them, but quite, I'm sure a lot of them look at us and go, "Oh, I wish I was there. I wish I could like
Yeah.
drive in a fast car." Like,
Well, we
who's
all do
done
that
that?
too, how many times do people want to be a millionaire? They look at the celebrities, I want this, I want that, but those are the most unhappy people in the whole world.
Yeah. I would
Money
never want
does
to be a
not
celebrity ever.
money does
No
not buy
thanks.
happiness, though it can buy opportunity. But you look at these people who have tons of money, and what do they do with it? They just spend it. That's all it's for. And
Because I believe that it's supposed to get cycled back in.
it
I really
is.
don't think that it's their money. And I feel like there's a
Yeah.
lot of restrictions
Well,
on what they can and can't do too.
money is directly connected to water energy, and it's supposed to flow, right? So you're supposed to continue the cycle, and that's how water flows. And there's so many money words that are water words, and currency, literally. And there's a whole thing about that. But you're 100% right, because you look at these like villages outside of America, and yeah, a lot of them are suffering because of some corporate greed and mining and really ruining the environment. But if you were to remove that, the villages are much more connected to each other. And I'm not saying that they have a better life, or that I wish I was there, because yes, we are in the land of opportunity, and I'm not going to look a gift mouth in the horse and say I don't like it. But I don't believe that we're meant to be living this way. Like I mentioned, the cities don't make any sense. They literally have us out of frequency. And I think that's why you see so much bizarre activity in the cities, is because people can't find their resonant frequency. They're lost.
And people are legitimately going insane.
Oh yeah.
Like they're going nuts.
Yeah. I do advise that if you live in the city and you're a very spiritually connected person, and you want to live in a more village-like environment, get out of the city. It's the first move. Get out of the city, because there's a huge agenda with like microwaving the cities and having everyone go insane. But we are supposed to live more tribe-like. It's supposed to be smaller societies working together. And there's a reason why, like, when you try to get like this whole cult agenda of everybody needs to be on board with the same thing, and like we're all meant to be different, we're meant to coexist, we're not supposed to be conforming into a hive mind. That's not what we do. We're not ants. And the villages, though again suffering from lack of money and being exploited, these people are so much more connected to each other. They know each other. They hold their traditions. They know the simple values.
They dance and they laugh.
Yeah. And we got millionaires depressed in their Ferraris on drugs, and we wonder what's out of balance. It's us. We're not in Earth's harmonic frequency. We are so detached from the sound frequency that is here, and we need to be able to quiet down and listen and tune back in and remove a lot of these distractions. A lot of things that money can buy need to be removed.
And that's coming. And it's coming, and it's so exciting.
Yeah, we're on the precipice of co-creating this, and I know there's already people who have kind of broken out and are starting to build like these retreats, these village-like things. And as we go through this shift, which again, it's another video topic I'd love to get into you with, is moving from where we are to where we're going to be. And it is this great remembering of what's important, what we're supposed to sound like, what we're supposed to feel like, and a smaller, more intimate collective.
Yeah. And that we're all, like you were saying earlier, we are all different. We're not supposed to be a hive mind. And what comes with being different is offering something that somebody else can't do. So we all can offer our own specific, unique traits about ourselves, to these communities. And it's beautiful. It's great when you can see something you've never seen before, a gift or something that somebody else can do that you can't, or you're taught it. I don't know. It's just we're not supposed to be the same. We're not all supposed to be skinny, blonde hair, big lips. It's boring. It's boring.
We all have different body types, and that's not to say that like you should let yourself go. Like we're all structurally built differently, but we should all strive for health and optimal lifestyles. Like we're all going to look different, we're all going to feel different, but we should still strive for the best, and the best is going to be different for everybody. But what we're doing right now is we're really not us, but the societal programmers, those puppet masters who are trying to cultivate a society and really like the degradation are supporting us losing our inhibitions and again displaying sexuality as promiscuously and as lustful, right? And gluttony is on the rise with the fat acceptance movement, where it's like, I don't want to change, so call me healthy. No, like, yes, we all have different body types, but we should still strive for health. Why wouldn't you want to live your most optimal life? And we're also bringing into mental health awareness, like you mentioned earlier in this exact talk. And you can't always see mental health, but there's some really severe mental health issues, but then there's created ones. Like, how often are people identifying with like anxiety? Anxiety is not a permanence. Anxiety is a condition that your body is dealing with, the environment that you're in, or the self-talk, and some degrees to others. I mean, we have people who are full-on empaths who don't even realize that another realm of energy exists and wondering why they're anxious when in public. And it's like, you got to start doing the spiritual hygiene. So it's like, not everything is diagnosable and meant to be a label for you to say, well, I can't function because of this. I was just talking with my sister the other day of how feeling like ADHD, right? Like, it's hard to pay attention. It's hard to focus your energy. It's hard to want to get motivated. And these are all symptoms for ADHD. And I was like, if I wanted to diagnose myself with that, I could. But all I know is that if I have an issue focusing, I got to get rid of distractions, and all these things are on the rise, because how often are we scrolling through our phones and watching 7-second videos and wondering why we can't pay attention for longer than a minute?
We need to hold accountability for
exactly
our
we're just diagnosing these conditions as if that's it, that's what it is, that's what you have, here's some medicine, get over it. It's like, no, awareness to it, realizing that that we can reprogram, reshift, and change, that we're not always stuck to these things. Yes, there are mental illnesses that aren't as easily changed, or maybe, will last a lifetime, and that you have to learn to work with. But a lot of this other stuff is just diagnosing the human condition and watching the human condition evolve in the environments that it's been with, removing nature, having these negative sound frequencies of music and Hollywood and self-talk, and the introduction to technology and how quickly things are moving, and we're looking at it and just diagnosing, and no one's saying, hey, I can break this behavior. This is a learned behavior. This is a symptom of me in this environment, and how can I bring myself back home? And again, it comes back to returning to resonant frequency, getting into earth, getting in touch with, even animals, plants. Like, you don't have to be out in the forest for 3 days. Just spending time in the sun and with living food like oranges and strawberries, like that all has codes of nature, we're eating like packaged foods and wondering why we're not okay.
Well, where I live, we have a big tower outside. And ever since we've lived here, I have been more fidgety. Constantly, like, I'm like, just like constantly moving. Like, it's just like very anxious. And if I went to a doctor and I had no idea, that it was because of the tower outside, because I've never lived next to a tower like this before. And since I'm aware with myself and I'm aware of my body and my environment, how I change, if I went to a doctor, he'd be like, oh, okay, well, maybe you're hyperactive or blah, 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 or you have this or that. Let's do therapy. Let's pop pills. Let's do this or that. And it's like, no. If we really looked at the problems, a lot of these kids that probably have anxiety or ADHD, it's because their faces have been stuck in a screen all day and the damage that it's doing to their brain. It's because of the towers that are outside by the house that are sending these wavelengths constantly. And the closer you are to it, the more damaging it is. It's like, no, you can't do that. You have to take a kid out of the environmental structure that they're in and really diagnose it that way.
And how often we tell kids to like sit still and be quiet again, and we're
it's like, go run outside and play.
Rather than like, go exert your energy, go learn, go communicate with nature. We're pulling them out of it and wondering why they can't function, and why it's getting harder and harder for and the kids that are being birthed today are way more sensitive. They are here for the new world, and yet the old world is still here. So they're much more sensitive to the things that are being put in their body, if you know what I mean. they're much more sensitive to the frequencies out there. Like you mentioned, towers are everywhere, the 5G towers, even before the 5G towers, the EMF waves from the phones.
Yeah.
Every kid has a technological device in their hand. And, we're looking at it as if this isn't, again, sound frequencies that are going through your body and recoding. And we really have to look at this reality as much more intricate, much more, I'm going to say magical, even though like some magic
Yes.
doesn't feel great, but like you have to look at this unseen realm of sound. There's always sound happening. And if you can just have this vision of the sound that you hear, the fact that you hear it is actually traveling through you. And if you're driving past a tower, or right now, I'm on the computer, my phone's right here, there's frequencies emitting and my body's being affected.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
realizing that we don't just walk through with armor, we got to put the armor on, to protect ourselves in a certain way, and choose to reprogram when we can. And we're going to do that, and we are doing that. And it's just the awareness is the first step.
Yeah.
And if we can recommend anything to anyone who's listening to this today, is to really take responsibility for the environmental feedback that you are receiving through your body, the sounds that you're choosing to listen to, the movies that you're choosing to watch, the words the conversations you're indulging in, the words you're having with yourself. Pay attention to that. And when you can, make the conscious alterations and see how you feel.
Yeah. Grounding. Just get outside, get in dirt 20 minutes a day. Absolutely. At minimum.
Absolutely. And sun exposure, big one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was great. I think that is a whole concise download.
We talked about a lot.
Yeah, I loved it. But yeah, so I think we're going to leave it here for this episode. And we appreciate everyone who tunes in. Comment below, give us any feedback. We'd love to, build community here. We just want a group of like-minded individuals who find value in the same type of things that we're looking to do, raise the frequency, raise our own, raise the collective, and have, a group of like-minded people come together to co-create this new world.
Yeah. Yep.
So, thank you all so much for watching.
Bye.